To hot topics now, and a convicted murderer serving time in a Victorian prison has been allowed to leave in order to access IVF treatment. Alicia Schiller is serving a 16-year sentence for killing a mother of three, but she's now been granted the chance to foster a life of her own. Schiller has to cover the cost of the treatment and transportation, but if it's successful, it's understood the child would be raised inside the prison. For their take, let's bring in broadcaster Neil Mitchell and Perth Lord Mayor Basil Zempilas. Good morning. Neil, what is going on here? She's a convicted murderer. She's being allowed to leave prison for IVF treatment.
This can be stopped, this should be stopped, and I think this will be stopped. It is an absurd situation. Previously, I've talked to a lot of friends who've been through IVF who were quizzed at length about their criminal history. That changed in July 2020. The Labor government changed it and said criminal history is no longer an issue. However, there is a loophole. You can't check the criminal history, but a thing called the Victorian Assisted Reproductive Treatment Authority, which is the government body, says this. It says although you can't check the criminal history, the welfare and interests of the child about to be conceived are paramount. Treatment can be refused if they believe the child to be conceived may be at risk of abuse or neglect. Now, you'd have to say that fits into that category. I think there's a loophole. I think the government should drive a truck through it. If they have to go to court and fight it, do so. At the moment, they're just pretending it doesn't exist and it's not their problem. This is their law. This is their law. July 2020, they introduced this, but there's a way through it. And as Brad Batten, the opposition spokesman, said, in what world does anybody think this woman would be a good parent?
Yeah, I think the government at the moment, Jacinta Allen, the Premier, has said it would be, quote, deeply inappropriate to start commenting. A lot of Victorians are going to say, I think she needs to, get in the truck and start driving, because I can't imagine most people are thinking this is a good idea. Basil, the other issue that's being brought up by the family involved is that a child is going to grow up in prison until they're 5, brought into the world deliberately. What do you think about this?
It's absolutely insane. This whole thing is absolutely insane. We should go back to where we started. The woman seeking to have IVF treatment is a convicted killer. Those two words should end it there. Where in Australia do people think that you can murder and then get these rights and liberties? It's not what Australians want. Nobody signed up for this. It's not what Australians think. So it should end and end now. And if the Victorian government has to go to court, as Neil has suggested, they should be there at 9 o'clock this morning. It's ridiculous.
I know. What's she going to be allowed out to do at Christmas shopping next? It seems ridiculous, doesn't it? Moving on, New South Wales is facing a summer of blackouts with fears the fragile energy grid will fall over as temperatures soar. It comes after a heatwave forced the Premier to ask residents not to wash their clothes or their dishes in order to save the state's power. Queensland had similar energy warnings. Neil, how can families deal with this uncertainty of energy shortages?
Well, they just have to, and it's been happening for years. We've had people, they've shipped in diesel generators in parts of Victoria to get through the summer. But as one of the experts said today in the Daily Telegraph, the industry's stuffed. I mean, the supply is unreliable, it's increasingly unreliable, and prices are going up. How does that work? You pay more and more and get a less and less service. The ACCC should be involved in that. We need it's a breakdown of planning, a breakdown of philosophy. It's been coming for years, there have been warnings for years. Come on, let's talk nuclear. I mean, if that's the answer, let's sit down and have a grown-up discussion about it.
Yes, Basil, it feels like we need an overriding body to sort this out, not... I know you're a politician, but not leave it to the politicians, because they have their own vested interests, and it doesn't feel like it's Australia is the one winning in the middle.
Well, maybe, or maybe that's overcomplicating it. There is a political leader who is advocating to bring nuclear into the mix. It makes sense, I would have thought. If nuclear can be a part of the energy mix, part of the energy solution, and stop days like this in Australia, then why wouldn't we consider it? 19 of the biggest 20 economies in the world manage nuclear. Are you telling me us, one of the 20th, couldn't manage it as well? Of course we could. It should be part of the mix. Peter Dutton's advocating for it. There's your way to it.
Well done, Basil. Talking points, Basil. Well done.
Yeah, exactly. And we would declare you have Liberal links, but honestly, then he could get in, he could get out 3 years later, then someone else is in. Do we need an overriding body, Neil?
We need some sort of planning and control. And AEMO supposedly is an overriding body, but they tell you 1 minute it's a disaster, next minute it's going to be okay. It has become too political. I agree with you there. There's Chris Bowen saying today, what we need is more renewables. Well, that's part of the problem. It's not working. There is not sufficient planning. It's all become political, and the Greens have got too much to do with it.
And you know what? At the bottom of it, people's prices are going up. They're flicking on the switch and they're paying more, and it seems we're a lot at the bottom of it. Finally, opinions are divided online this morning over a controversial move from Woolies to rename their gingerbread men to Gingerbread People. Neil, what do we think about the decision to do this? They're non-binary people.
I think it's woke Woolies. I really think Woolies is over. Surely the most serious green voting, yogurt eating, bike riding hippie isn't offended by these. I think it's Woolies seeing a problem that doesn't exist.
They said they weren't selling, Basil. So
what rot? Well, let me just check my speaking notes. Hang on, there's nothing on them, Neil. I mean, again, there needs to come a time when big business in Australia just uses some common sense. They're called gingerbread men. They have been for 1,000,000 years. Nobody is offended by it. Nobody. Stop trying to play to a crowd that doesn't exist. Just make our groceries cheaper, more affordable, and get on with your core business, and let us decide how we want to think. Okay. How about that, Woolies?
Do we need 2 packets? Do we need a man's packet? Do we need a woman's packet? Do we need a non-binary packet?
No, we
3
don't.
packets.
No. You need dozens then. You need black gingerbread men and gay gingerbread people and trans biscuits. No. I agree with Basil.
OK, I think that we'll leave it to the people to decide. Thank you. We'll leave it then. Thank you. Just declaring we were talking to 2 men about the gingerbread men topic.
Hope that's okay.
Well, might not be. See you next week.